Once again, I'm starting off with that HB. And we're taught to make our pencils quite sharp. I don't know why it won't focus, but that's about how sharp I made my pencil for this. If you've ever heard of barg plates, this is similar to drawing barg plates, or drawing from cast. So we set our top, we set our bottom. So there's a flow, right? And that's the cant of the weight-bearing leg, and the other leg was forward, right? You have this parallel of the motion of the legs. You know that the hips will go that way. The contrapposto, the shoulder will tilt that way. Alright. And the head up here, right? Step back, take a look at it, try to look at it holistically. Once again, I have no reference. I have no reference here. I'm going off what I know completely here. We'll put the feet behind and in front. And place the head somewhere around here. That means that the torso kind of comes this way. The leg will kind of jut out a little bit. Bring this back. Usually, and this can vary, right? The pit of the neck lands somewhere around here, and the pit of the neck typically lines up with where the pubis symphysis is in the middle of the figure. And the pubis symphysis usually lands right smack dab from top to bottom. So that'll probably be like somewhere around there. Maybe lower a little bit. I'm pretty sure that head comes like back here. And the back of the head usually lines up around the ankle or the back of the foot. And remember, I have no reference. I don't have a reference here. And it's a pretty nice gesture, though. And I noticed that with figures, the hip, the canting hip, usually lines up right where the chin is. I could probably fix that later. The inseam of the leg comes almost straight down from where the pubis symphysis is. And place the chin. Right. Just straighten this out a little bit. And bring the head forward a little bit. Right. And this inseam of the leg usually lines up around where the shoulder or the acromion hits. So I'm gonna bring this a little bit forward. You can erase some of these messy lines. Give yourself a more accurate representation of what you're seeing. This, like I said, is a precision instrument. Graphite is something you have to learn to be more accurate with, especially at the beginning of your drawings. It is a tedious instrument. And I'm fairly certain that the hip kind of comes up higher. Yep. So you have this gesture in here. Bring this leg out. I'm gonna make this a little more accurate. fairly certain that this is and we're just kind of going off of the pose from the last drawing I showed. I don't have it up as a reference. That's okay. That's okay. I'm taking a step back. I'm looking at it holistically. And as I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of the shapes of the anatomy. So I know that this rib cage in here is just a box, right? I know that it's a box. This is that rib cage in there. And I know that the pelvis as well is just another box. I know it's going to come back in space this way. This is how I'm viewing my figure when I'm developing the figure, right? I know that the pelvis is just a box inside the form. The rib cage is just a box inside the form. And the head as well. The head as well is just a box inside the form. And there's a little example that one of my teachers likes to use. If you think of 3 apples chained together in a string, right? These 3 apples are on this string. Every apple is going to have a movement this way and a movement this way. You can gyrate it in multiple positions. And it's gonna move depending on that gesture. It's gonna move in every direction possible. So oftentimes our gestures, if they were apples, okay, this is my top apple. This will be representing my head. So it could be canted this way, and then the other apple will be canted this way. That's the rib cage, and the last apple will be canted this way, right? It's just how gestures usually work. Obviously, this is exaggerated, but you see here in this gesture in here, head is on, and then the rib cage is tilting this way, and then the pelvis is tilting this way. These are your 3 apples, and they're going to have a certain gesture to them. You use those basic shapes to help inform your drawings. And you can, if you really feel like you need it, you can use the center line as well. The center line of the rib cage usually lines up with the sternum. That's going to be the middle of your rib cage, and it'll split at the bottom, creating that costal arch. This is your costal arch. This is your sternum. Your sternum connects with the clavicles here. Your clavicles go and meet up with your acromion process. This is your rib cage. This is your rib cage in here. These are your acromions, and then your shoulder. It comes out. Those are the corners of your box, right in there. In the middle of your box is your sternum. That's how that fits into the box. That's how you envision your anatomy inside of the shape. With your pelvis, I have a tendency to make my pelvis too wide in my drawings. So like my hips are often thicker than they need to be. So something I've been working on is creating a smaller space for that, or bringing it in from the get. Now your pelvis is a little tricky, because your pelvis doesn't actually have a top plane like this. It actually has like a peak of convexity in there. There's a point where it hits up top, and then it'll come down. Come down this way, come down that way, and it goes back in space. And it creates this sort of like tilted bowl shape, right? That's what like holds your organs together. I'm still figuring that out, but I do have a skeleton. Okay, let's take a look at this guy. He's pretty dead. All right. I always think it's important to learn about your anatomy, not just for your drawings, but... Oh, did my pencil break? Oh, my pencil broke. Oh, great. That's fine. Let's take a look at our skeleton here. This right here, this little protrusion is known as your ACES. That's where the sartorius muscle will connect and wrap around and hit the side of the knee, the inside. This point here is the crest of the pelvis, and then if we turn them around, this right here is known as your pieces. So this is your ACES. This is your ACES, the anterior superior iliac spine, right? And this is your pieces, your posterior superior iliac spine. So these two points of the pelvis are the front and the back of the box. So if we draw that, this is the box, right? My freaking pencil broke. That's okay. We draw that box again. I'm gonna need to do that. Use a little tiny 2B. This is the box, right? So based off of this guy's anatomy, here, I hope you guys can still see that. Based on Billy Bob's anatomy. So this is going to be where your ACES hits. That's going to be where the crest of the pelvis is, and then your pieces is back here. So this is how it goes, right? Same thing on this side. ACES, crest, and pieces. And then it sort of just like wraps around in the back. This is probably like a really wide set pelvis in here. But that's perfectly fine. And then your pubis symphysis comes out in front from the bottom of that pelvis. We're kind of learning this together right now. I've been meaning to work on this for a while. And now your great trochanter, or your femur, we take a look at Billy Bob again. This is your great trochanter in here. It connects to the pelvis with this little ball and socket thing here. Now, the great trochanter will protrude and cause a little bit of a slant in there in the hip. In women, it's a lot wider. In men, it's more narrow. The great trochanter, maybe I draw my pelvis a little bit bigger just to give you, right. The great trochanter will hook in here. It'll hook right in here. And it'll connect right in there. Just like that. Now, it does come in at an angle. And then this, because this comes out, right? This is the way it looks, ball and socket, and then it comes out. Just like that. That pushes against the skin And this little area where the socket is inside the pelvis tends to pull down on the skin. So it creates this like little hip dip, this little crevice, and it'll come out. Same thing on this side. So the pelvis pushes out at the crest. So you get this like protrusion in here. It'll dip in to where that socket hits, and it'll pop back out because the great trochanter pops right in there. That's where you get the nuance of your hips in a figure. Remember, these divots that happen will create a shadow shape. Will create a shadow shape because it escapes from the light. Unless the light is focused on it, in which case it'll shine. So, there's just a little bit of anatomy for you. So, similarly, the rib cage will cause certain effects on the skin as well. So you have, let's go back to Billy Bob. So we have Billy Bob here. Now, the box is right in here. This is my box of the rib cage. The shoulders will come out at the corners of the box, and the collarbones will outline the top. This little circle in here is where the neck connects. Shoulders will meet at the corner of the box, right? This right here is where my collarbones are hitting, and right in here, let's put that out a little bit. This is where the acromion process is. That's where the collarbone, the acromion process wraps around and attaches to the scapula at the back. And these are collarbones in here. This is our acromion process. Our shoulder comes out. That's the bone. I forget what that bone is called. I think it's called the humerus. So the whole point of what I'm showing you right now is how the simple abstract shapes can inform you of where to place the anatomy, and it can also reinforce the placement of those anatomical markers. The anatomy will affect the surface of the skin in certain ways. And right in here, remember this is our rib cage. Right now, our pectoralis will come out this way. It'll attach itself up here. Bring that around. Right, this is our pectoralis. The pectoralis will come underneath and over and attach itself to the humerus up here. And the deltoid is right in here, over that shoulder, and it'll attach as well. So the pectoralis will meet up at the same point as the deltoid. Same thing over here. That's my deltoid. It'll meet up with the humerus, and then the pectoralis will come up and attach as well. I think the pectoralis actually comes a little bit lower here. And you have three main sections of the pectoralis. I forget the terms for them, but these are your three main. You have one up top, one in the middle, and one in the bottom. Then your biceps brachii will come underneath and attach itself to behind the humerus. And here, your triceps will come up, and your triceps are a little, the shape of the triceps is a little tricky. So if I were to draw the side, right, like if this is my rib cage, this is a shoulder, and this is the bone, the humerus, right? The tricep will come, here's your deltoid, right? It'll come down and wrap itself under, and right in here is the tendon of the tricep. But on the other side, I'm gonna draw it again, but this time from the back. So this is the same thing. This is your scapula in here. So the tricep will wrap around like that, and that's your tendon of the tricep. Your deltoid will wrap itself this way. Your tricep will come, I need to lower that. So your tricep will wrap around like this, wrap around the bone, and that's the shape of your tricep in there. Same thing in here, there's a little muscle right in there, in between the tricep and the bicep. That's what it will look like. So from this is the side view, this is the back view, but from this angled view, it'll just look like a couple of lines because of the muscle that's over it. And it'll connect to your elbow, and right in here is where your brachioradialis hits. It'll attach itself to the tendon of the tricep. Right, the bicep kind of comes in and inserts itself under. You have the other side of that forearm. I'm kind of losing the proportion in here, but that's fine. Yeah, this is how the anatomy is built up. I kind of got away from the ribcage, but that's okay, that's okay. The bottom of my ribcage in here, all right, the lat will come up around the side, come down. Now, this little section in here can be a little tricky. If you ever notice in cartoons you'll notice that it's just a simple line that comes out from underneath the breast of a woman, or like with a big buff guy, right? Like, right. He has this big chest, big buff guy, and he'll have this little protrusion that'll come down. He has his abs, you know. This little protrusion is the bottom of that costal arch protruding. And the skin tucks under because the costal arch ends here. Yeah, here we go. So I hope that by the end of this demo, you have a better understanding of anatomy. You have a better understanding how the abstract shapes can inform your anatomy and how they are informed by anatomy. Clearly, I have a lot more to work on with my anatomy, but that's okay. That's why we do this. We get better little by little. So if you stuck around, thank you. I appreciate you. I love you. Have a great day.